Vera's lawyer stood up and set a stack of papers on the table like he'd just exposed a major crime. He read the first line out loud. "Your Honor, these are the messages where Justin admits to altering grades." The whole room turned to Justin, as if waiting for him to collapse. Justin stayed upright. His hands were clasped behind his back, his eyes steady. He didn't deny anything, and he didn't try to explain. He just stayed silent, like silence was the only thing he still owned. I sat in the row behind him, leaned back, didn't step in, didn't speak for him. Just watched the lawyer lift a phone and open the so-called admission. A short, sharp message, edited just enough to make an outsider believe Justin had caved to a shady request. The courtroom went quiet for a few seconds. It felt like Vera had already won. I could even hear someone breathe out in relief. I didn't breathe. I watched it the way you watch a trap snap shut. No panic, no rush. I'd seen this kind of attack plenty of times, except this time, the one inside the trap was my husband. To see the full picture, I need to pull the story back to the moment before anyone touched it. Back then, I was buried in a deadline for a new ad campaign. That job trained me to spot every tiny flaw. A word slightly off, a color a bit too dark, a line of copy missing its rhythm. The habit slipped into the rest of my life. I read people through details, the half-second pause before they answer, the way their eyes shift when they lie, the way they try to look normal when they're anything but. Justin was nothing like me. He taught English at a high school, gentle, principled. He trusted people so easily that sometimes I had to remind him to tell the difference between genuine kindness and pressure dressed up as politeness. He didn't compete, didn't push back, didn't know how to protect himself the way this world expects. And my mom, Diana, was the kind of person who didn't talk much but noticed everything. She rarely stepped into our business, only when she felt she had to, and when she did, I usually knew the situation had already gone past the point of normal. Vera first entered the story with an impatient attitude. She was the parent of one of Justin's students. People said Vera donated a lot to the school, knew plenty of people on the higher-up parent committees, and had a way of getting what she wanted without ever saying it outright. A quiet kind of power, but an irritating one. Justin told me she'd invited him for a short meeting that day. He thought it was just about her son's progress, but it wasn't. After a few polite compliments, Vera brought up grades. Her son was about to fail the class, and she wasn't willing to accept that. "Just a few points," she said, her voice soft as air, "just enough so he doesn't get kicked off the sports team." Justin answered right away, steady and polite. "I don't adjust grades if a student hasn't met the requirements." Vera paused, a tiny pause, but long enough for someone like me to know she just felt offended. Justin told me about it that evening while we were setting the table. He said it lightly, like it was nothing. "She's probably not happy, but I didn't do anything wrong." I just nodded. I didn't reassure him. I didn't say Vera would let it go. I just kept that story in my mind exactly where it needed to stay. People like Vera aren't used to hearing the word no. The next week, Justin said the parent meeting felt a bit strange. Vera didn't say anything to him directly, but when another teacher asked her something, she looked at Justin for a few seconds and gave a polite, cold smile. The kind of look that feels like a warning, wrapped in a thin layer of friendliness. Justin didn't think much of it, but I remembered every detail he told me. Things like that rarely end with just a look. They usually have a follow-up. A few days later, it happened. Justin was making tea when his phone rang. He opened an email. I saw his face change, not panic, but the kind of surprised confusion that comes when something makes no sense. "What is it?" I asked. He turned the screen toward me. An email from an anonymous address sent straight to the principal, requesting the school to review the ethical conduct of teacher Justin L., who has shown signs of altering grades against regulations. No explanation, no evidence, just a bare accusation, sharp enough to trigger a chain of trouble. I looked at Justin for a few seconds. He stayed silent, gripping his phone a little tighter. I didn't hug him, didn't try to reassure him. I just said one flat sentence. So Vera's started. And that was the moment our quiet days ended. It wasn't court level yet, not a storm yet, but I knew that email was the first shot in a fight Justin would never choose. He let out a breath and sat down. I kept my eyes on the words professional ethics in the email. A gentle phrase, but strong enough to pull someone under. I set the phone on the table. I didn't say anything else, but I knew this. One wrong move, and Justin would be crushed by an accusation no one bothered to check. And people like Vera, once they begin, rarely stop. The story started to shift from that anonymous email and accusation so cold and clean, it left no trace behind. Just enough to push us toward the storm that would explode in court later. That anonymous email didn't stop at the principal. It spread faster than I expected. The next morning, Justin walked into school looking as normal as he could, but I knew his mind was running through 100 questions. And I also knew that email was just the first shove before the real knives came out. The rumors began within 2 days. First was a whisper in the hallway. I heard Justin favors the female students. A comment that sounded like idle gossip, but cast a dark enough shadow. No one confirmed it. No one denied it. It floated around, slipping into the ears of anyone bored enough to talk about someone else. Then the second rumor showed up. Justin takes gifts to change grades. A coworker repeated it with a half-believing tone. That's what I heard, not sure if it's true. People always say not sure, but the way they repeat it still lets the story grow, like someone out there wanted to spread it without putting their name on it. That afternoon, Justin showed me a set of text messages. The moment I looked at them, I knew something was wrong. The timestamps overlapped. One line was cut in half. Another was attached to a time that didn't match. For someone used to layouts and spotting edits like I am, those mistakes were as clear as if they were lit under a bright lamp. Do you see anything? Justin asked. All of it, I said, my eyes still on the screen. But they won't talk about the errors. They'll only look at the last line. And that last line was, I can arrange it as long as you keep it quiet. Justin never wrote that. I knew it. He knew it. But for people who want to believe the worst, it was way too convenient to ignore. The system started tilting in Vera's favor faster than I expected. The principal called Justin into his office. His voice was polite but tense. To maintain transparency, I'm asking you to take a temporary leave until the matter is clarified. Temporary leave. A phrase that sounds light but hits as hard as any punishment. Justin didn't argue. He just nodded, keeping that calm demeanor he always had, but I saw his shoulders drop a little as he walked out. A good man's calm is usually the first thing tested when a storm hits. It got worse. A few co-workers who used to be friendly now started avoiding Justin's eyes. One greeted him, but the tone was so forced it sounded like an obligation. Another switched seats in the teacher's lounge when Justin walked nearby. Small actions, tiny ones, but together they formed a clear distance. Justin didn't complain, but on the drive home, he gripped the steering wheel tight, like he was trying to keep himself from sliding off his balance point. I'm fine, he said, but I could hear the strain in it. I didn't say, I understand, didn't say, it'll pass. I just looked ahead and said, if they want to hit your dignity, they'll pick the moment you're weakest. Justin went quiet, but that sentence made him sit straighter. He knew I wasn't trying to comfort him. I was telling the truth. The tension wasn't just at school. It slipped into the house like a thin layer of dust. Justin tried to act normal, tried to smile when I asked how he was, tried to keep his morning routine of reading the news with Diana. But every time his phone buzzed, he paused. No one had to say anything for us to feel the shift. Justin tried to hide all of this from my mom. He thought she'd worry or worse, be disappointed. But Diana didn't need anyone to tell her anything. She watched Justin a little longer than usual, like she was weighing something. One evening, Justin was reviewing his class files when his hand shook a little, just for a moment. But Diana was sitting across from him. She set her cup down and asked straight out, "What's happening at school?" Justin quickly said, "Nothing, Mom." Diana glanced at me. I stayed silent. I didn't defend him or speak for him. I let the truth crawl out of the dark on its own. It's the only way it carries real weight. Then things escalated exactly the way I expected. One afternoon, Justin opened his inbox. His expression darkened. He tilted the screen toward me. The subject line read, "Notice of complaint received. Professional ethics violation. Sender, Vera's attorney. No more vague rumors. No more anonymous emails." Vera decided to go straight into legal action. In the attached file, I saw a set of messages Justin had never seen before. A pre-made conversation, arranged to look like Justin had agreed to adjust grades if the gratitude was worth it. It wasn't just messages. They even attached a student's name to it, making it look like there was a witness and a victim. Justin let out a hard breath, his hand gripping the edge of the table. "I never wrote any of this." "Of course you didn't," I said. "But Vera's lawyer doesn't need what's real. They just need what looks real." I read the entire document. I didn't skip a single detail. Every tiny formatting flaw, every unnatural splice, every line that didn't match his tone. I recognized the method. Clean, careful, built so neatly that no one would feel the need to look deeper. It wasn't hard to see the goal. Force Justin out of the school by trapping him in a scandal bad enough that no one would dare take his side. I looked at him. I didn't tell him to stay calm. I didn't say we'd get through it. I just said, "This won't stop here." And right then, the doorbell rang. A man in a suit stood outside. He held a court summons, neat and cold like the very fight Vera wanted Justin to face. Justin took the papers. I stood beside him, silent. In that moment, I saw it clearly. This wasn't the final blow. Just the next step in a battle Vera believed she had already won. The summons lay on the table like a period at the end of any hope Justin had that this was just a misunderstanding. In the days after, he barely slept. I saw the exhaustion in his eyes, but he never let himself fall apart. Justin was the kind of person who tried to stay upright even when everything around him was collapsing. And I quietly gathered every piece of evidence. The edited messages, the timestamps off by a second or two, the tiny details most people would overlook. I compared every file Justin got, checked every metadata tag to see when it had been altered. Everything leaves a mark if you're patient enough to look. One afternoon, Justin received another email from Vera's lawyer. This time it was a video. "Recorded by another parent," they wrote. The video showed Justin standing with a female student in the hallway, leaning down to talk. The angle was blurry, making the whole scene look like a secret exchange. Justin went pale watching it. Why would they? He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I understood the rest. I watched the video 3 times, then 2 more, this time frame by frame, and it only took about 4 seconds for me to see it. The video was cut. The final frame darkened too quickly. The timestamp jumped just slightly, like the end had been deleted. 10 seconds, exactly 10 seconds, were missing. And in those 10 seconds, I saw a gray shirt sleeve pass by before the screen went dark. Someone else had been there. A teacher. It wasn't the private conversation the edited video was trying to suggest. "I know who shows up at the end of that video," I said. Justin looked up. "Who?" "I'll find out," I said. No reassurance, no quick promise that everything would be fine. The truth is the truth, but getting people to look at it sometimes takes the right moment. The next day, I went to the teacher who appeared in the footage, Mr. Reeve, the biology teacher. I caught him in the parking lot. He froze when he saw me, like he already knew why I'd come. "I've seen the video," I said plainly. "You were there at the end." "You know that." Reeve looked away. "I don't want to get involved. This is messy." "I'm not asking you to do anything," I said, steady. "I just need confirmation." But Reeve shook his head. "I have a family. And Vera. I don't want to be on her bad side." He walked off. I didn't call after him. I don't push people who are scared. They're not on anyone's side. They're on the side of their own safety. And I don't blame them for that. I just took out my phone, pulled up the video, and captured the frame with his gray sleeve. Evidence doesn't need words. It just needs to exist. That evening, Diana knocked on my office door. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was measuring every breath the story had taken. "Let me handle this part," she said, her voice colder than usual. I met her eyes. "What do you have?" "You don't need to know," Diana said, "but Vera's gone too far." She walked away, quiet but firm. I didn't ask more. Everyone has their own way of fighting, and Diana wouldn't have said that unless she had something strong enough to matter. We walked into the court that day in two completely different states of mind. Justin wore the suit he saved for formal occasions, but the way he buttoned it slower than usual told me exactly how tense he was. He wasn't afraid of a court. He was afraid of being misunderstood. For someone like Justin, that weighed more than any sentence. I walked beside him. I didn't talk much. I didn't want him leaning on me to feel okay. I wanted him to stand even if the whole room turned against him. Vera arrived early. She wore an expensive outfit, hair neatly done, walking like someone who believed the win was already hers, and all that was left was paperwork. Her lawyer carried a thick stack of files. It looked like they'd arranged everything so tightly it couldn't be undone. When the hearing started, Vera's lawyer played the video first. His voice carried a confidence that bordered on showing off. "This is clear evidence that teacher Justin L. engaged in private, inappropriate interaction with a female student, with no other witnesses present." I looked at the screen. Each frame played exactly as I remembered, and right at the moment the gray sleeve appeared, the video darkened, just like the copy I saw at home. I didn't look at Justin. I looked at Vera. The way she crossed her arms, tilted her head slightly, glanced at me for one short second. She thought I'd react. She thought I'd jump up, say something, tear apart their argument. But I didn't. I stayed still, not because I felt powerless, but because I was waiting for the one person who could break Vera's entire plan with a single sentence. Justin stood beside his lawyer, his hand shaking slightly. He was watching a distorted version of himself being shown to everyone. He didn't know the video had been edited. He didn't know pieces had been cut out. He was just watching his own image twisted into something he never was. Vera's lawyer kept presenting more evidence messages, vague emails, second-hand statements from a parent who heard about inappropriate behavior. Each piece laid out in a perfectly crafted order, meant to push Justin to the bottom. I listened to everything. Calm, steady heartbeat. My silence was the strongest defense at that moment. Justin's lawyer was about to stand and respond when the courtroom door swung open. Footsteps echoed softly. No one turned around right away, but I recognized that sound. Diana walked in. She held a small USB in her hand. Small, but enough to flip everything Vera had built. And for the first time all morning, I let my shoulders loosen. I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to ask. I knew Diana had brought something Vera never saw coming. The courtroom stalled for a beat. The moment the door opened and Diana stepped inside, I knew the truth was finally ready to speak. She moved through the room in complete silence. She didn't glance around, didn't rush. She walked straight to the judge's bench and set the USB down like it was nothing more than an ordinary object. But I knew whatever was on it had the power to put the entire story back where it belonged. The judge looked at her. "What do you want to present?" Diana answered, "This recording is directly connected to the case and to how the previous evidence was created." Her voice didn't shake. It wasn't loud. It was steady enough that a few people turned their heads without meaning to. Vera's lawyer frowned. "Your Honor, we haven't received this material. The other side can't introduce new evidence at the last minute unless—" The judge raised a hand, cutting him off. "I'll review it first." He plugged the USB in. The big screen lit up, and the courtroom fell into a different kind of silence, the kind people hold when they're waiting for the drop. Diana stood straight. "This recording is a phone call between Mrs. Vera, and an individual connected to the school. Vera believed the original file was deleted, but I recovered a copy from the internal security system. I used to work on the school's safety oversight board before retiring." I saw Vera flinch, a small movement but impossible to hide. The judge pressed play. No ambiguity, no room for excuses. Vera's voice came first clear, confident, carrying the tone of someone used to getting her way. "I need the grades changed. As long as Justin does it, I'll forget the past issues." A few people in the room snapped their heads up. Then the second line came in, sharp as the blade Diana had waited for the perfect moment to reveal. "If he dares refuse, I'll make sure he never teaches anywhere again." No one breathed loudly anymore. No one leaned toward Vera's side now. Vera's lawyer froze, his hand still resting on the stack of files, but no longer turning the page. He looked at Vera as if asking, "What did you do?" Vera's face drained of color. The confidence she walked in with vanished without a trace. Her breathing went shallow, like the walls around her had collapsed before she had time to brace herself. Justin lowered his head and let out a long breath out of defeat. But because, for the first time in weeks, he wasn't fighting the dark alone. I looked straight at Vera. My gaze was cold, not angry, not triumphant. Just the look of someone watching another person fall into the hole they dug for themselves. Justin's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, this recording shows the entire case was built on coercion and threats. The messages, videos, and documents submitted by Mrs. Vera should be re-examined as manipulated evidence." The judge didn't answer right away. He looked at Vera. "Do you have anything to say?" Vera opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again, but only managed a broken line. "I didn't. That was a misunderstanding." No one in the room believed that. When the truth is dragged into the light, it doesn't need anyone to defend it. It stands on its own. I leaned forward slightly and said one sentence. Not loud, but clear enough to cut through the room, stretched tight like a wire. The truth doesn't shout, but it's enough to stop any scheme. A few people looked at me, not because of the words, because of how I said them, calm enough to make the other side step back. Vera lowered her head. No one told her to. But that's what people do when the evidence exposing them lands right in front of everyone. The judge wrote a few notes, then spoke firmly. The evidence provided by the plaintiff shows signs of alteration, lack of honesty, and coercion. The court dismisses all claims. Teacher Justin L. is cleared of all accusations. No applause. No one needed it. That ruling alone carried enough weight for Vera to feel the collapse of the power she thought was untouchable. Vera's lawyer stared down at the table, avoiding every eye in the room. He gathered his files so fast the papers nearly slipped from his hands. Justin closed his eyes for a moment, just a few seconds. Then he stood straighter than when he first walked in. I saw the weight lift off his shoulders, but he didn't lean on anyone. He'd taken every hit long enough to stand steady in the moment he finally won. The judge turned to Vera. "You will be reviewed for intentionally submitting falsified evidence, causing serious harm to a teacher's reputation and career. It wasn't the final ruling, but it was enough to crack the shell of superiority Vera had wrapped around herself. People began gathering their things. The silence in the courtroom wasn't just the quiet at the end of something. It was the quiet of people watching the truth fall back into the place it belonged. I stood. Justin walked beside me without a word. We didn't need to speak. This moment didn't need words. Diana was still standing at the front. She looked at Vera for a long moment, her expression free of anger but sharp as a straight line. Then she said one sentence, clean and cold enough to make Vera lower her head again, deeper this time. People only fear the truth when they're the ones running from it. No threat, no insult, just the plain reality. Vera didn't answer. She just stood there with her hands clasped tightly, all confidence gone. And that was how the hearing ended. No noise, no shouting, but enough for everyone in the room to understand that the truth, when brought out at the right moment, always wins against whatever someone tries to hide. After the hearing, the school called Justin the very next day. The principal's voice sounded awkward, like someone who'd put their trust in the wrong place. We'd like you to return to teaching. Everything has been cleared up. Justin listened, then gave a small smile. Not a happy smile. The smile of someone who had finally seen the real face of a group he once thought was on his side. Thank you, Justin said, calm, but I'm not coming back. The principal went silent for a few seconds, then sighed. Justin hung up before he could search for another excuse to keep him. I looked at him. I didn't ask why. I didn't tell him to give the school another chance. Good, I said. This shows you were never meant to stay somewhere that waited for you to fall, so they could believe the worst of you. He nodded, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't lower his head when he walked through our front door. In the days that followed, Justin changed in a way that told me he'd stepped into a new version of himself. He no longer shrank when people watched him. He no longer stayed quiet when he was doubted for no reason. He was calmer now, not the calm of someone weak, but the calm of someone who'd stood back up after being kicked straight in the pride. One evening, he sat on the porch, the warm light casting across a face that no longer carried the weight it once did. He said quietly, I thought my career reputation was what held me together, but it turns out the thing worth holding on to is my own self-respect. I answered, You kept it. No praise, no comforting, just the truth. Diana changed too in her own way. She didn't hug Justin, didn't say things like, I'm proud of you. She just sat beside him one night while the three of us were in the living room. She handed him a cup of tea without a word. Justin took it. The three of us sat there in silence. No one spoke. No one needed to. There are moments when peace doesn't come from comforting words. It comes from knowing the people beside you are still there, steady and unmoving. In that moment, I knew Diana saw Justin as family in the fullest sense. Vera didn't get that kind of ending. Right after the hearing, the fake evidence she'd submitted was handed over to the Education Board for investigation. The recordings, the messages, the anonymous documents, every piece was taken apart. It didn't take long for the school to uncover her interference in the system and her attempts to manipulate the internal review. Her son was transferred to another school the next week, not because of anything he did, but because no school wanted to stay tied to the mess Vera had caused. She went silent. No apology, no admission, but silence can be its own kind of collapse. I remember walking out of the courthouse that day. I walked a few steps ahead of Justin, the same way I do whenever I want him to stand on his own. He followed behind me, not grabbing my sleeve, not needing me to turn back to check if he was okay. When we reached the steps, I turned and looked at him. They don't win by knocking you down, I said. They only win if you're too scared to stand back up. And you stood. Justin looked at me, and his eyes were no longer the eyes of someone letting others define him. Not alone, he said. I didn't confirm it. I didn't deny it. Some victories belong to the person who lived through them. I just walked beside him, so he wouldn't forget that the truth has allies. A few days later, when everything slipped back into its normal rhythm, I thought a lot about what had happened. Kindness didn't protect Justin from being framed. The truth didn't speak on its own unless someone pulled it out of the mud. And silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's the only way to see who's trying to twist the story. But I also understood something else. People don't grow stronger from comforting words. They grow stronger from the moments when they stand in the middle of unfairness and stay clear enough not to become the very thing they hate. Justin is proof of that. And I and Diana, we all learned that lesson in our own way. I'm telling this story not so anyone can feel satisfied that Vera lost. I'm telling it to remind you that injustice isn't rare. But there are 3 things that can pull someone out of it: the truth, clarity, and a few people who stand beside you at the right moment. Not many, just a few. The way Justin had me and Diana, and the way I had them. In this life, sometimes the thing that saves us isn't strength, it's clarity. When you face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is, you know where to stand and how to move. And that's how you keep yourself intact. That's where the story ends. Thank you for staying until the last moment. If you've ever witnessed injustice or seen someone pushed into a dark corner the way Justin was, share it in the comments. Real stories always matter. Please support me by subscribing so you don't miss the next one. And thank you, because every time you come back, I know I'm not telling these stories alone.